Hello everyone and welcome to punklottopod, the game where no one wins. I'm your co-host Justin Hensley.
I'm your other co-host Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where using a number generator and the Rate Your Music Punk charts, we pick one album and one EP at random to discuss. And before we get into the show, it has come to our attention that we don't have very many reviews on our iTunes page. And two of the reviews we do have are less than glowing.
Hey, look.
I believe
we said we discussed the albums. We didn't say we were experts.
One reviewer referred to us as two morons who don't know what they're talking about and don't have the taste to talk about it.
Yeah. All right.
And, yeah, okay.
This sounds like a bitter Flipper fan.
Yeah, I don't normally care about bad reviews, but when the bad review is not constructive in any way whatsoever,
and personally insulting. I mean,
yeah. Plus, between us, we have 30 years of combined experience in the punk scene.
Yeah.
From going to shows, buying albums, being in bands, and writing about punk music, either on blogs or in actual print.
Yeah, blogging in some format for, I don't know, a decade.
Right.
Have been, published in a print magazine and contributed to some decent named publications in the punk world.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I'm qualified to some extent, but I mean, no, the nature of this podcast is to have a kind of a fun conversation about punk.
Two particular albums.
So we don't, look for super obscure facts to tell you, because that could just be like dry, bland, encyclopedia type podcast, and I don't know. That's not fun for us to do. No. I don't think it's that fun to listen to. So if that's what you're looking for, you'll be disappointed.
We also don't really have the time to research in depth multiple bands every single week. So we do cursory glances at information, but the main goal is to talk about the specific album. So I don't know. I don't want to stay too long on this. I just wanted to
I'm a 5-star man.
I just wanted our regular listeners to, if you haven't, please go out on our iTunes page and rate and review us. It doesn't have to be much. You don't even have to have an account. You can just type in a username you want, and just give us a review what you think. I mean, if you don't like the show, you can give us some constructive criticism, but I mean, things we could do to improve it. But I mean, don't just outright be like, these guys are stupid. And also, we have regular listeners who we know don't feel that way. So, or if so, then they listen to a lot of hours of podcast for no reason. Just to be angry. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And we have gotten feedback from regular listeners who have said, be more personal, give your personal connections to this music, not so much research heavy, So we've taken that into consideration in the format of our blog. So anyway, not to go too long and defensive and petty or whatever.
I'm not even mad about it. I'm just more, I don't know. I just like the idea of somebody.
I'm not mad about it. I'm not even mad. That's fine.
I don't know.
Well, anyway, what have you been up to lately other than fuming about negative reviews? Because that's what I did yesterday.
It's so funny because I laughed at it more than anything. So I had a pretty fucking rad last Friday. I spent all day in Charlotte.
Everything else
North
sucked,
Carolina.
though. This is just Friday.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's way too true.
Bring it down.
But Friday ruled. I'm not going to get into it. The rest of the week, it wasn't fun. But, so, Friday, I spent all day in Charlotte, which normally I would not like, because Charlotte kind of sucks. But growing up...
You have alienated our Charlotte punk listeners.
Whatever. I don't think we have very many Charlotte punk listeners. So.
And they know.
They know. It's not really a cool town. It's just got a couple bright spots. One of those bright spots is Lunchbox Records. And I will say, Lunchbox may be my favorite record store I've ever been to. It might even be the best I've ever been to. Anyway, I brought them a bunch of records to trade in, mainly 7 inches, just because, God, I hate 7 inches. It's such a pain in the ass format. There's a bunch of stuff. A lot of punk 7 inches I got rid of.
If you feel like getting up every 2 minutes.
Yeah. Or if you're just going to stay standing.
Yeah.
And they're not even good, like, dishwashing records, because you have to dry your hands off every 4 minutes, but to flip it. So I traded in, and then, like...
It took me a minute. Dishwashing records. I got it. It's like, you wash your dishes with your records? I don't understand how that works.
No, it's bad chore. It's a bad format for chores.
Yeah.
So I traded in a bunch of 7 inches and then like bought a bunch more things on top of that. Like I spent as much as I got in trade credit just because why not? So I picked up quite a few cool things. I picked up a copy of Wild Honey's Sleep Through It.
Oh, nice.
And a comp they were on from Slumberland Records called Continental Drift, which they had 2 songs on. I also picked up No Pocky for Kitty by Superchunk.
Nice.
Grand Prix by Teenage Fan Club. Joan Jett's Bad Reputation. Pretty cool, clean copy. And a European pressing Old Fling's Spite.
Oh.
Because I didn't have it, and they did an amazing job of packaging on that. And that record is fucking awesome, and you should go listen to it right now. Stop the podcast. Go listen to Old Fling's Spite. I promise you, it is it's very, very good, criminally underlooked punk record.
Overlooked? Underrated? Yeah,
Yes,
I love that record so much. Full disclosure, we are friends with that band, but...
And the label that put it
right.
out.
But they're legitimately, it's a great record. If you love like Sam I Am type kind of 90s-ish emo core, pop punk, it'll be right up your alley. I had an eventful past week or so, since the last episode we recorded. I met up with 2 different drummers. Both were pretty fun experiences, pretty productive. Other than that, I reworded my ad on Craigslist once again, and if you put the word shoegaze in your ad, you're only going to get responses from people that want to only play shoegaze. So, not like I'm not trying to play shoegaze, but there's enough of a little bit of an influence that I felt like it was worth throwing in there. But I don't know, see where things go with one of these drummers. Cool. What else did you do? You said you did something else.
Oh, right. Well, actually, I was in Charlotte all day, so I did quite a few things. I went to 2 record stores.
Wait.
And the other one wasn't very
What
good,
other record store is there?
Manifest.
Oh. Yeah.
Not a good record store. And I went to 2 different bookstores. One is actually very close to Lunchbox. And I'm blanking on the name of the bookstore. Shit. Book Buyers, that's what it's called. And I picked up 2 books there. One was a Donna Tartt novel, and another was a true crime book. Then I went to... There's a modern art museum in Charlotte. So I was like, God, I have so much time to kill. So I went there. Saw some pretty cool modern art. There's some Picasso paintings there. There's like 3 or 4 Picassos there, which was pretty cool. And then I went to see New Japan Pro Wrestling live in Charlotte. It was the first New Japan show on the East Coast of the United States, and it was fucking amazing. It was probably I probably saw the best wrestling match I've ever seen in person at that show, and it was a really fucking great show. So I hope they come back. There was issues with the Japanese wrestlers getting visas because of the government shutdown, so they weren't none of the Japanese wrestlers were able to come to this show, but all the rest who did perform were all amazing. So my Friday consisted of punk, Picassos, and pile drivers. So, well, are you ready to get into our album?
Let's do it.
Get into format. So, for this episode, we got the year 2008. And as always, we like to look at the Rate Your Music charts for punk records in that year. So, what are the major trends of 2008?
Right off the bat, the first two albums are not albums that I had heard of at all in the year 2008. Definitely some sort of a retroactive a bump there to the top of the list.
Yeah.
But getting a little further down, we start to see what I remember of 2008, and there's a couple of different little trends there.
Yeah. I see four big trends going on here.
I'd say something like that.
So
it's the
right off.
So the biggest trend that I see, like the main overarching theme of the year of 2008, I would say this is the turning point for so many mall emo and metalcore kids becoming real punks. Because I know that's when I became a real punk.
Yeah.
But looking at these albums, that I don't think that I was alone in that transition that year.
Well, I noticed there. So you take the mall kids, and you branch them in two different directions. The one direction, specifically in like metalcore, this is the year deathcore kind of blew up. It looks like, and like shit metalcore just got real bad. And the opposite direction is when those metalcore kids started getting into more punkier, more straight up hardcore, more thrash influenced hardcore. So like, for example, Verse and Half Heart, Defeater, all released albums. This is also when you start to see the Deathwish style of like kind of crusty thrashy hardcore takeoff with Trap Them and Cursed's third album and Trash Talk. I think there's a Blacklisted album that year.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, you have shit like Veil of Maya. And I
All Shall Perish.
Yeah.
Man.
The Acacia Strain.
Man, this year, I'm just scrolling and seeing so many pivotal records for me.
Yeah, totally. So the other big trend I feel like was the birth of fest punk. Do you think that's inaccurate? And that's an umbrella term, really.
Yeah.
Because that covers your like Latterman influenced bands, which we'll talk about later. Your noodly emo bands, you
have Civil War by Dillinger 4 that year.
Right.
I mean, the fest punk album.
Yeah. So much that, the song Gainesville is about fest. And it's funny, that song was so prescient. Is that the right word?
Yeah, like it really, like, it was still a couple years before, like, fest really got to its height.
Yeah. This was Fest 7, which was my first fest. And I think it's a lot of people's first fest. Like, I think Fest 6 was such a big deal. Well, Fest 6 was so good that the organizers were like, we're going to go all in on Fest 7. And then that lineup just fucking, like, exploded. And then couple that with Civil War came out, like, the week of Fest. And Gainesville being the theme song for Fest.
Yeah.
Like, you could not have timed that release more perfectly. And, yeah, it's just Off With Their Heads From the Bottom came out that year. The best Off With Their Heads album. I know people say Hospitals, and there's some debate there, but for me, it's From the Bottom. The 59 Sound came out that year, which Gaslight Anthem's not really a fest band, but most festers like that album.
Mm-hmm. Well, then you also have, like, there's like a Polar Bear Club record that year, and
Painted Black's New Lexicon.
You get
Lemuria's Get Better.
Yeah, 2008 is such an interesting year. I mean, there's some really, really good stuff on here.
Yeah.
I mean, Old Wounds by Young Widows, that was a really big album for me. And then there's you got some Screamo. You kind of have like that authentic, that real Screamo thing
The revival.
really starting to take off. So there's like a Loma Prieta record, and there's like, there was something else I saw.
La Dispute. Rain hadn't won that year.
Oh yeah, there's like the Ditros and Non Satiata
There's
split.
2 Off Minors.
Yeah.
Transistor's last album.
Yeah, this year it really just looks like the year that everyone got into real punk, everyone got into real screamo, revival, everyone got into real emo revival, like Midwest emo revival, and
yeah, Tiger's Jaw's self-titled came out that year.
And
I think it took a year before Tiger's Jaw took off, but that year people were listening to that album.
There's a lot of like real grind and real crust, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just like everyone suddenly realized there was way better music in all of the other, punk subgenres. I know I did.
This starts my love, my like super devotion to like punk rock, because I liked punk rock, but it was mainly older stuff at that point.
Yeah.
And
yeah, for us it was mostly, Minor Threat, Misfits, Dead Kennedys.
Yeah. In 2008, prior to 2008, we were listening to a lot of metal, more in the post-metal vein, and a lot of black metal, and then, a ton of classic punk. So it was like, and a lot of Discord punk. We were listening to a lot of Discord punk. But as far as like contemporary punk, we weren't really following what was going on. Just because I feel like the early 2000s were kind of dark for punk rock, because it was very dominated by the leftovers of 90s pop punk, skate punk, mall punk, and really run by like the Warped Tour sound.
Yeah, and Warped Tour shifted so hard towards the money-making, metalcore and emo pop punk stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, 2008, we've said it before, 2008 to 2015 are probably our favorite era or 2013 is probably our favorite era of music. I mean, it lines up too, because we're in our 20s then, so.
I'm still in my 20s.
But, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so how does all of that inform our album?
Very much so, actually. All right. So, the album we drew for this episode is number 306 on the album chart, and it is Bridge and Tunnel, and their full-length album, East West.
The way that happened, too embarrassed to say that we could build something better. I don't give a fuck, can't get you off the line every time. The core of the apple is rotten, but somehow the skin still shines. So what's the commonality? The smell of the river, these boxes that we run. The night lies the test marks of the fucking test we run. So never let these blind lights and bustling feet make us feel small again. Just hold on to me. Hold on to me if you need it.
East/West. I don't know how you say it when it's like that, but
East, West.
Yeah. From New York City. New York City. This is their first full-length album, and it was released on No Idea Records, which is very important, especially in 2008. And the personnel on this album is Rachel Rubino and Jeff Cunningham on guitar and vocals, Tia Mailinger on bass and vocals, and Pat Schramm on drums. It's recorded by Kevin Ratterman of Elliott fame and mastered by Darren Neufer from Gunmole to make this the most fest record ever.
Yeah.
Rachel played with Warriors and Open City later, which Open City is Dr. Dan Yemen's most recent project. Jeff played in Slingshot Dakota, as well as Thousand Airs, the most generic Latterman knockoff you could possibly be. They're always my example of Latterman punk. He also plays in Headlines, who we saw at Fest last year. Tia played in Rations, and she would leave the band before the next LP. And Pat Schramm is known for being in Latterman, Tender Defender, Day Trader, Slingshot Dakota, and Headlines. So yeah, fest as fuck.
Yeah, this is so No Idea Records.
Yeah. The artwork, the pedigree.
Now, here's the thing that I did not expect from this album. It doesn't sound nearly as much like Latterman as I thought they sounded like.
Right. So like the first 2-3 tracks are like the most Latterman sounding songs. The rest of it is very mathy and like kind of noodly a little bit.
It reminded me of, so before I listened to this album, I did a little bit of reading about them, and I saw a review where someone said, I've seen them compared to Cursive, and I like kind of did a double take at it, and I was like, Cursive? They don't sound like Cursive. And then I listened to this album, I'm like, oh, they do kind of sound like Cursive. I didn't realize that. Like, I really only knew like that first song on this album, and yeah, it was a surprise. It kind of reminded me a little bit too of like Casket Lottery.
Yeah, like there's a big time Small Brown Bike vibe, like later Small Brown Bike albums. But then even like there's a little bit of O Pioneers on like some of the punkier songs at the beginning of the album, mainly Jeff's vocals. Because when I went into this, I was expecting, oh yeah, it's that Latterman spin-off band that's like not as good as Iron Sheik and Reviver. And it's like, well, they also weren't trying to do the same thing they were doing, so it's not really that fair to compare them. There's hardly a what-oh to be found on this album.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, they definitely do the Latterman, like, everybody sing at once thing. On more than just like the first couple songs. Like it's a pretty heavily recurring approach to their vocals throughout the album. But yeah, it's funny. Like this album does dabble in a lot of 2008 punk trends more than just like the default fest punk. Yeah. There's that little bit of a electric jangly folk punk, which, you know, there's there's that This Bike Is a Pipe Bomb record, and something else.
Nana Grizzle.
Yeah, Nana Grizzle. Yeah. And then there's like, there's that the little bit of noodly, and some of the noodly emo stuff, like the math rocky emo stuff with the gang vocals, really reminds me of like Street Smart Cyclist or Snowing or Grown Ups. Right. All of those bands that came a little bit later that kind of did that sound.
I feel like it bridged it. It's like a bridge album, and especially when you think of like No Idea Records, because No Idea before 2008, I guess, was primarily known as like the home of Hot Water Music and Against Me. But then like the smaller bands were a lot of stuff like Look Mexico and like a lot of more mathy type guitar playing, but it also bridges into the Latterman sound, and then even the twinkly sort of, I know people hated the twinkly term, but like the noodly Kinsella inspired stuff is there too. So it feels like a between two worlds, like it's right there bridging both prominent No Idea, 2 or 3 prominent No Idea sounds.
Go down and the shoes
what's your overall impression of the album? Like, what did you enjoy it or what?
I didn't love it.
Right.
They did some things, and the things that reminded me of Cursive, and the things that I don't like about Cursive. The sometimes like too like smart kind of sort of post-punk math rock, really repetitive, just like one little riff played repeatedly. That those things kind of got on my nerves and grated a little bit. But I'd say I liked it overall.
I'd say overall it was more of a positive experience than a negative one. I didn't love it. I didn't dislike it, and it's above. It's something you notice. Like, it's not you don't ignore it very easily, but it's solid. It's solid, and I could see how someone would really like it too, because Bridge and Tunnel kind of have a following. Like, you'd say they have a pretty steady following.
I'd say
right?
people remember them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think they're a band that was just totally forgotten from this time period.
No.
And I think they're remembered. I think they're remembered more than just for some people as more than just a Latterman spinoff. So.
Right. Yeah. Did all of their records come out on No Idea?
They did. I was just on their Discogs page. Now let me get back to it.
Yeah, both albums, East West and Rebuilding Year, both came out on No Idea Records. Yo-Yo Records did a cassette for Rebuilding Year.
Yeah.
And some other EPs. And then, the EPs were all...
There's one
idea.
for cover 7-inch, it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like it's part of one of their 7-inch series. Yeah, other than that, everything else looks like it's No Idea Records. Which, do we want to talk about No Idea for a second?
Yeah, actually, because I read an interview with Pat from Bridge and Tunnel on Punk News from 10 years ago or something, and he talked about how great No Idea Records was.
Yeah.
And I specifically noticed the way that he said, it's so great working with them because there's no contracts, and it's just like you're working with your friend, and you can just call them up and talk to them, and they're not trying to sign you to a 3-album deal or anything like that. And I'm like, yeah, it's the handshake agreement punk label.
Right.
Isn't that what it's supposed to be? Yet, now everyone hates No Idea because they had gentlemen's agreements, handshake agreements, my word is bond agreements with all these bands that they worked with who think that there's tons of money that's been pocketed, and I don't believe that. It was money that got put into putting out records that did not sell.
Right. Because for every, reinventing Axl Rose, there's a Unitas album. Or, for every Hot Water Music, there's a Tim version record that probably didn't need to be pressed on. So, yeah. And that's the issue. I think the bands are mistaken who call out No Idea specifically. And really, I can only think of one band in particular, but I know some others have. But they call them out for holding back money. And I just don't think that there's money there. I think every dollar that record label made went right back into the record label. I mean, they had to sell the
Well,
I don't know if they sold it, but they had to move out of the Fest house.
Yeah.
They couldn't. The No Idea house.
It's just how anti-DIY, how callously, blatantly self-serving is it to shit on the label that has distributed almost every single punk record released in the last 10 years and has given opportunities to bands that no one else would have.
Right.
I don't know. That was, to me, it seemed like following the Discord model of just putting money back into the punk community at the very grassroots.
Yeah.
But give me my t-shirt money. I don't know.
Yeah. That bothered me the most.
You should have had a contract.
Yeah, I mean, if that was what you were concerned about. And I don't imagine No Idea just did stuff without asking permission first. Like, they lost the Hot Water Music records. Like, they don't have them anymore. So if they... Who was it Rise who has them now? Like, who did the last round of represses? Like, No Idea announced that this was going to be, like, their last round whenever they did it. They did them. So, yeah, I don't know. Has Against Me ever said anything negative about No Idea Records?
I don't remember if they chimed in at all on that controversy. There may have been something in passing that was saying like, yeah, we didn't see a lot of money from them.
I just don't think there was the money.
Well, at some point there was. I mean, for a band like Against Me, those records were selling.
Yeah, of course. At some point. But I still feel like it was just used to... I wonder how much of they paid for recording-wise, too, for other bands. Probably not much. I don't feel like they were that type of label.
No, I don't think so. But, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
We digress.
Right. So, yeah. So it's a interesting. I don't know quite what else to say about this album. My favorite track is probably the very first track, Wartime Souvenirs.
Yeah.
How easily we forget, how easily we comply. Today we even the splitter, mandibles and trigger. We're still dropping bombs in the name of the city we live in. Still talking bombs in the name of the city that we live in. It's time that's exhausted us and fuck us up. Holding silence in what we did. Can't get anything done today. And we feel self-employed too easily. That's our song for the back pay. Oh, how easily we're pacified by bullshit, by TV shows, on DVD. Should take an election to remind us that there's a world. Should take a song for us to come together and scream that we're still here and we're still past.
It's like the most Latterman sounding song on the album, I think. I do like that they had 3 different singers in the band, and 2 of them were women. Rachel and Tia both do vocals, and then Jeff does vocals. And I don't know how many songs each person sang, but I thought that was really cool and fitting with Latterman's like stance on women and punk rock and how they need to be heard.
Yeah.
How it's perfectly fitting and
Inclusivity and... Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a lot that I think about a lot that I didn't like either. I checked out a couple of their other releases, and I think I liked the self-titled EP the most. That came out in 2007 because it was a little less mathy, and I think that's where I'm more hung up on. It's like I don't listen to a ton of mathy stuff anyway, so I lean towards the poppier tracks on the album.
This album, as I was listening to it, it got me thinking. It got me on maybe like thinking about like post genres and how they all tend to be kind of like the same approach, just applied to a different subgenre, like post punk and post metal and post rock. It's mostly just like going really long on one simple idea, and that's kind of like the defining trait of all of the post genres. And it got me thinking, like, is there a post emo equivalent to that, or is emo too much of a deviation on the basic structure and formula of punk that it's kind of its own form of post punk?
Well, the only example the only examples I could think of are some of the weirder emo bands, like Coheed and Cambria. Like, they do that where they spend too long on certain things, and that's a prog rock thing.
Yeah.
Though. And then, like, Say Anything kind of does a lot with that, but then a lot of that's almost like concept work. My Chemical Romance did that with concepts.
Yeah. Is it... Because there's... I feel like maybe it's like the Kinsella.
Yeah, that has
thing.
to be it. The American football-inspired noodling. But the trend that popped up that you embraced that sound specifically were all real short, concise sounds, like Snowing and Algernon.
Yeah.
And, you know, so they did a lot of tapping, but it wasn't masturbatory. Like, weren't just sitting there just hammering on over and over and over and over again. Just, you know?
Yeah.
But I guess it's once you start to get, like, to the bands that do lean closer to American football, like your Caravels or your
I don't know. I guess there's something intrinsic to emo that it's hard to get too like detached and still call it emo. You know, you can only be so disaffected before it's just a totally different genre.
Well, it feels like it stops being genuine too. And one thing is about emo is it does tend to be about your emotions, and it's very difficult to fake that. And then the only time you do, you wind up with silly stuff.
Yeah.
Like Say Anything. You're like, oh, this is a concept song about...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
What would you rate this album?
I don't know. I guess my gut reaction would be 3.5, 3.75.
See, I say 3.75 as well.
It's not something I'm, gonna go back to, really. And it's not a band that I guess I wouldn't say that I feel like I missed out on them.
No, I don't feel like I did either. I don't feel like... Because they have an album, they have a Live at Fest 9 album, and or EP, and I don't even feel like I care that I'm not there for that. You know, like, they were always in my mind. My whenever I think Bridge and Tunnel, I think, oh, the Latterman band that's not Maddie or Phil.
Yeah. Well, it's a band.
It's reduction.
Yeah, it's a band name that comes up when you think of like Young Livers or
who they got split with.
Or just a lot of the bands that were on Fest lineups.
Yeah.
Between 2008 and 2010.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, do we want to dive into more twinkly, mathy, emo?
Let's do that.
Hardcore.
Let's do that. So we got number 128 on the EP charts, and it is Native and their EP We Delete Erase. So if I'd have known that Bridge and Tunnel album was so noodly... Oh wait, I'm giving away the fact that we choose albums here. Ignore this part. Let me rephrase it. So I didn't expect to be doing 2 noodly
You're not
albums.
going to edit this out. Just
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't. Oh, maybe not now. Now that you've added in this side note. I didn't expect to do 2 noodly albums on this episode.
No, I didn't.
I thought with Bridge and Tunnel we were going to get more Letterman style, and that album is maybe a third Letterman, 2/3 noodly. So
I thought we were gonna
Native.
I thought we were gonna talk about something more distinctly gruff pop punk.
Yeah. So Native, let's run through some basics, are from Valparaiso, Indiana. I think it's Northwest Indiana. And the personnel is Daniel Evans on guitar, Edward O'Neill on guitar and vocals, Bobby Marcos on bass and vocals, and Nicholas Glasson on drums.
I've always thought of them as like a Chicago band, so I assume they're from like a Northwest Indiana town, Chicago suburb.
Yeah. This was a self-released EP, and then was later reissued by Sargent House, who released their 2 full-lengths.
Yeah, it's weird that this is a Sargent House release and not, or that their later stuff were Sargent House albums and not what I would have thought they would be. And Top Shelf Records did do a repress, I believe, of Wrestling Moves.
Right. They did, yeah. It looks like they did most of the vinyl pressings of Wrestling Moves. So did Sargent House primarily do the CD? Yes. On that album, looks like it. What else does Sargent House do?
That's such a mystery label to me. It's an LA-based label.
Red Sparrows?
Yeah, Red Sparrows. That's what I was going to say. It was something like post-rock.
Russian Circles, Mutoid Man, Chelsea Wolfe, Dylan Carlson, Woven Hand. This is not the label that Native should have been on. Deaf Haven?
Well, so, like, Native kind of does the more detached, obtuse, kind of musing math rock. It's a little more Terra Mellos than it is Algernon Cadwallader.
Yeah. And this album especially,
yeah.
I feel like, because overall, I didn't have a lot of fun listening to this one. Not that it's bad, it's just it's not a style I go to very often. And I feel like their 2 full-lengths were more enjoyable because they embrace the more screamo elements.
Yeah.
That they only kind of hint at with We Delete Erase. But like Wrestling Moves, I always consider Native a screamo band. Like a mathy screamo band.
Yeah, I really liked Wrestling Moves. When that album came out, like, I remember getting into that not long after it came out. And that would have been, that would have been kind of like my peak math rock, screamo, emo type listening.
Yeah. Yeah, this album really reminds me of, or Native in general, really reminded me of Victor Fix the Sun. Like that type of screamo, emo, math stuff.
Yeah, which that reminds me of something that I wanted to say about Native. Listening to this EP and thinking about that band reminds me of other bands that were coming out of like the Chicago, Michigan area, that Midwest scene, and how I wish bands like Jowls, which was the post Victor Fix the Sun, or Brighter Arrows, had gotten more recognition. The kind of bands that, played shows with Native frequently.
Yeah.
But never really got quite the same level of recognition.
Yeah, I feel like the only ones along that lines that did get that attention were like Lock Tender, maybe.
Even then, not much. They just kind of stuck around.
Yeah. Or the one I'm always lamenting that didn't do more was Castavet.
Right.
They made 2 fucking incredible albums and then one really great single. Yeah. The when they changed their name to CSTVT. Castavet.
Yeah.
And did that picture disc single, which was great, but I was like, oh, I can't wait for the album. And then they never had one after that.
Someone in that band went and became a doctor or something. It kind of ended it. And then, like, I'm pretty sure the rest of that band are, the backing band for Into It Over It?
Yeah, so that brings up this. So Bobby Marcos in Native also plays in Stay Ahead of the Weather with Evan Weiss, who was Into It Over It, which also has other Castevet guys. So, yeah, the connection to Castevet is there. They, have shared projects. And then Bobby also plays in Cloakroom, or did, I don't know if he's still in the band, but they were trying to inhabit that failure hum sound at first. I don't know if the later material quite does that, but...
yeah, like I think I said this maybe on our shoegaze episode. Cloakroom often gets sort of miscategorized as shoegaze when they're more recent, like further out. That album reminds me of sounds like stoned Pedro the Lion.
Yeah, this is like the opposite side of the coin of the 2008 emo trend. So if the genre had gone in a more serious direction, then it would have been... I wonder... So, if they had embraced the more native aspect, would Twinkly shit have, as it was fondly referred to, had a longer life? Or, like... Because I kind of feel like bands like Ape Up or Prawn...
Ape Up.
kind of hurt the legitimacy of the Twinkly emo.
Yeah, I don't know. It was, Native is kind of, though, like, it's the emo that, like, Pelican fans listen to. It's the brown pants emo.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess they could have taken their places in, like, the Pitchfork, put out an album every couple years, play 3 shows a year. Kind of approach.
They have one show coming up in February. I didn't even know they were still a band, but apparently they have a show coming up soon. Yeah, or did everyone else figure out, there's only so many ways we can tap without being like actually phenomenal guitar players? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
is that why that trend really died? It's because too many golfers popped up.
Yeah, just not enough. Not enough real solid songwriting. Too much navel gazing.
Like your bands like Dads and You Blew It went garagier, fuzzier with their sound. They kind of slowed down with the noodling.
Well, yeah. What did I've probably said it before, but all the emo kids started smoking weed and
yeah,
just want to do like sad stoner slacker rock.
Yeah,
they aren't freaking out as much. Even still, though, there are bands that are doing that'll pop up from time to time and do some alternate tuning, tappy emo, and
yeah, it's always weird when they do pop up.
Yeah,
because I'm like, what are you doing here? Free throw. That sound died, and then American Football comes back together and releases an album.
Yeah. Which,
have you heard the new songs? Ooh, they're not good.
I don't like classic American football, so.
Yeah, and I didn't love this EP, but I went back and re-listened to Wrestling Moves to see if I was wrong about liking Native back originally, and I still really like that album.
I did the same thing.
I think they just got better over time, which is fine. It was a self-released CD, and then they got signed and it was pressed on vinyl and put it when they got signed at Sargent House. saw Native.
Really?
Live. Yeah, they played Krazy Fest 2011.
Oh, yeah.
The
Krazy Fest.
The doomed Krazy Fest. So, I don't really remember much about their set other than they were good. Like, I remember they were enjoyable. They had a smaller side stage that they only used at the beginning of the day. So, like, while they were still setting up the bigger stages, the two larger stages, they had a small stage where people could get in and out really quick. And they would only use that for, like, the first 2 or 3 hours of the day. And they were good, but they didn't leave a huge impact on me. Man, but it made me think about Krazy Fest, and I was like, oh, I wish it had continued, because it was the most laid-back music festival I've ever been to. Like, there were just 3 stages, and only 2 would be used, like, simultaneously, but they wouldn't even be simultaneous. They would be Hot Water Music finished playing, and then you go across the parking lot to the other stage, and Bouncing Souls start playing. Like, it was that kind of festival, where it's that, who was it? There's like some old Discord band that talked about, they would take turns alternating between songs, and then like, so people would watch a band would play a song, and then everyone would turn around to the other side of the room, and the other band would play a song, then they would turn back around. It felt like that in set format. Mm-hmm. Like you just walked across the parking lot, and it's the only fest that you could like literally see every single band who played. And you didn't have to watch everybody either. You know, there were plenty of bands on that festival that I didn't see. It wasn't very crowded, so that may be why they never did another fest, Krazy Fest. One of the downsides to that weekend was one day it rained, like really bad for a long time. And so they had one stage that was like inside and like this hangar type thing, and another stage was outside. So they had to move all the bands to the indoors one. And weirdly, it didn't affect the schedule very much. So I guess they just like broke down, got them in and out real quick. But that was the Krazy Fest 2. It's kind of an infamous show because that's the year I think Self Defense Family
got a reputation,
blew up. Yeah. So they organized the Bane at a strip club show.
Dane.
Yes, they were famously called Dane on the marquee. It was like Bane, Self Defense Family, Fireworks, and one other band all played in the strip club. And I didn't go because me and my friends went to like a Hampton Inn, Holiday Inn pool party show where Mixtapes and Mikey Erg played acoustic while people swam in the pool. And that goes to show you what kind of punk I am. Oh, I don't want to go to the strip club. Even though that was the more famous one. And now I kind of wished I'd gone just to be like, yeah, I was at that fucking disaster.
Yeah.
Because, like, the dancers still danced while the bands played.
Yeah.
And then all the punks, they had to, I think it was like a two drink minimum type deal. So, like, all the punks went up to the counter and bought, like, Pepsis and waters. Yeah, it was very strange. I'm sure that venue was like, what the fuck? Or that strip club, not really a venue. It was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. That, we don't have to dig into that one. I was trying to think of how should that show have been received? Was it like edgelordy? Was it like...
Yes, it was organized by Pat from the Prince family. It was completely edgelordy.
You know, genuinely trying to be sex positive.
I think it was both.
Yeah. Because the thing is...
edgy under the guise of sex positivity.
The thing is, the dancers at that club probably did not benefit very greatly from that show. So, I feel like you probably just made a shitty, most likely abusive club owner a little bit richer. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, way off topic.
Yeah. It was related. I felt like I was...
When's it ever going to come up?
When's a crazy... Unless they cover another band I saw at Krazy Fest. But that was also the year Tiger's Jaw blew up really big. And then imploded. So, soon after. That was before Two Worlds came out.
So much of this stuff imploded. You know? Like, we talked about like the Twinkle Daddy noodle... Mm-hmm. What was the other term?
Glitter Mommy.
Noodle tweens or
twinkle shit. I remember having a discussion with couple members of Muscle and Bone, and they so hated the Twinkle Daddy thing. Like they were like, it's so reductive.
Yeah.
It's like it
was.
It was. Kinsella worship is probably less insulting.
Yeah.
But yeah, that exploded. I guess the emo revival kind of stuck around, but like Latterman Punk's pretty much dead now.
Other than Iron Sheik and Reviver and
Right.
Tender Defender occasionally.
Right.
Yeah.
Fest punk, as the term, doesn't really refer to any one sound anymore.
So like your Top Shelf Records, are they still much of a thing?
They still release music. Let's see.
Bellows, yeah. Toe.
A lot of represses of Japanese emo bands. Toe, Mouse on the Keyboard, and Trico are all repressed on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rat Boys. Rat Boys are probably their only valuable band, I guess.
A great big pile of leaves.
Relevant band. They tried to redo it with Special Explosion, but they didn't really take off. Prawn stuck around over there.
Yeah.
They tried to make Del Paxton a thing.
I mean, they did some Wild Honey stuff.
Yeah, they do that Heat record is really great. They did that last Dangerous record.
What are the other big labels from this time period?
Well, Run for Cover was, and No Sleep.
Has Run for Cover have they worn out everyone's patience with their lackluster 7-inch series that take forever?
I don't know. Are they still doing that
with
series?
The Phase, Fiddlehead.
Yeah, they have Mac Taverscan and Self Defense Family and Citizen. Weirdly, they're the ones who took up Me Without You.
Yeah.
They have Camp Cope. That's kind of their thing now. Oh, they did Pine Grove.
Yeah.
They didn't do the second one. That's something. Man, I was so annoyed when I saw Pine Grove on some best of lists. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Not woke punks.
That Pine Grove record was really great. Was it?
Yeah. So great that you had to get tattoos of it.
You can just listen to the sidekicks and the weaker thans and so many better bands.
I enjoyed that record. It was one of my favorites that year, but
yeah, but you don't want to listen to it now.
No, I can't. I can't listen to it.
Well,
yeah, No Sleep kind of, I don't know what happened there. No Sleep's like, what do they put out now? Daisy Head? Living with Lions?
It seems like all the labels that cut their teeth on the emo, screamo, revival thing, like, got embarrassed. It really does seem like that. They were like, oh, now we need to sign bands that, like, say they're influenced by Superchunk. Or,
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, labels like Protagonist, they just quit releasing records.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that.
Count Your Lucky Stars. And though, to be fair, Count Your Lucky Stars was doing the emo thing before everyone else was.
Yeah.
Before it became trendy. And then they cashed in for a few years and they quit too. What was the record they were promising to do forever or never and ever and never did?
I don't know.
There was one that they talked about for years, but it never happened.
I don't know. Castavet follow-up? I don't know.
No, we'd asked for
vinyl
a pressing of Summer Fences on vinyl. And he's like, yeah. And then never did it. I'm sure he was like, no, they're not going to be a band much longer, so I'm not going to put money into it. But if you run Count Your Lucky Stars records, I'll still buy that Summer Fences record if you put it on vinyl. I promise you.
Yeah, they could sell it. They could do a 300 copy pressing and sell it.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
What would you rate this native EP that we barely talked about?
Right. Well, every song did sound the same. So you talk about one, you talk about them all. My favorite song was What Are You Dylan in My House?
Yeah, that's the only one that comes to mind.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I'd give it a 3.25.
We'll talk about this. They do that. They do that thing. Alpacastan, Flashdance. What are you Dylan in my house? Ride the Tide. Hey Mon, hook me up, do. Like
hook me up, dough. Something about
goofy, meaningless, Caramellos, word salad. Yeah, I don't know. 3.25. I enjoyed it to some extent. It sounds enough like their later stuff, which I do enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we can wrap things up here and talk about what we're doing next week. So on the Rate Your Music charts, we got the year 1988. And for albums, we got number 152, and it is Swizz by Swizz.
Cool, Total Power.
And our EP is number 158, and it's Cringer, and their EP Zen Flesh, Zen Bones. Which, if you're playing along at home, if you want to listen to the Swizz album, you have to do it on YouTube, unfortunately. You can also get the Cringer album on YouTube, or you can listen to it as the final 6 tracks on... find the name. On Spotify, on their album Tiki Tiki Tembo, No Saw Rembo, Cherry Berry Ruchi Perry Pimbo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
a look at an often forgotten year.
Yeah.
A very, very, very heavily overlooked period of punk. The latter 80s. We'll discuss that more next week.
Right. So continue following us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're at punklottopod. Nobody interacts with us on Facebook and Twitter, but our Instagram does well. So it's probably the most enjoyable social media to use. We have an email address. It's punklottopod@gmail.com. And our website is punklottopod.simplecast.fm. All our episodes are available on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Play. Please go do some ratings on
Throw
iTunes.
us a bone.
Tell those old man nerd punks to that you don't agree with their opinion, and if you do, don't call us morons.
Right.
At least. And I guess that'll do it for us. I mean, we have to end this with a 5-star man, though.
I'm a 5-star man.
You're a 5-star man!